In this session, I am explaining how to perform CRUD operations using Java Persistence API. To perform CRUD operations using JPA, first create a table in MySQL database. Create a table employee with three columns: employee ID, name and salary. In these three columns, employee ID and salary is declared as integer and name is declared as worker. Then execute a select query to retrieve data from the table employee. Select star from database schema name KLU dot the table name employee. So it retrieves data from the table employee. The table has two records. To perform CRUD operations, create a new Maven project in Red Hat Code Ready Studio. File new, then choose Maven project. Next, select the architecture type Quick Start version 1.4. Then apply filter to select architecture type Quick Start version 1.4. Maven archetype Quick Start. Then select Maven archetype Quick Start version 1.4. Next, provide the details of group ID and project name in the artifact ID field. So then click on finish. It creates a directory structure for the architecture type Quick Start version 1.4. Once the build process is completed, then we can explore the directory structure with the project explorer. So explore the directory structure and expand the build path src main Java. There by default it creates a package for app.java file based on the architecture type Quick Start. So delete the package, then convert it into dynamic web application. So choose the project root directory, right click and use the option build path, then configure build path, then choose project pagesetted, click on convert to pagesetted form, then choose dynamic web module version 3.1 and change the Java version to 1.8 and then select JavaScript and Java server pages version 2.2 and JPA version 2.1. Then click on further configuration available. In this window, just ensure the JPA implementation type is disable library configuration. And then click on next. Enable the checkbox to generate web.xml file. Then next, ensure the JSF implementation library type is disable library configuration. The file format star.jsf is not yet added in the URL mapping pattern. Use the option add to add the file format .jsf. Then OK. Then apply and close. Now the directory structure is created to support dynamic web module as well as JPA. Now we can see the JPA content in the directory structure. There is a file persistence.xml. Then locate the file web.xml in the directory src main webapp then webinf and open the file web.xml. Open it in source view. In the welcome file list, change the index.html as index.jsf. Then remove all other file formats in the welcome file list. Then save the file and close. Then open form.xml. Upgrade the Maven compiler source and target to 1.8. Then add dependencies for JSF, Enterprise Java Bean and Java Persistence API. So open your browser and visit the website mvnrepository.com. Then find the dependency detail for JBoss JSF API. Then choose Java Server Pages 2.2 API and select the latest version. Copy paste the dependency details to form.xml file. Then find the dependency for Enterprise Java Bean. In the same website, search like Enterprise Java Beans. So click on the link Enterprise Java Bean 3.1 API. Select the latest version and copy paste the dependency details to form.xml file. Then find dependency for Java Persistence API. Search like JavaX Persistence API. So click on the link JavaX Persistence API. There is only one version 2.2. Click on the version 2.2. Copy paste the dependency details to form.xml file. So then save the file form.xml and close and update the project by choosing project root directory. Right click and use the option Maven update project. Once the project is updated, then we can start implementing the CRUD operations using JPA. Okay, then create index.xhtml file in the directory web. Choose the directory web, right click and use the option new xhtml page. Name the file as index.xhtml. So later we can design this page. Then choose the build path src main java. Create three packages by choose the option right click new package and create package as com.controller and repeat the process to create two more packages com.entity and com.model. Then create an entity class in the package com.entity. Choose the package com.entity, right click and use the option new class to create a Java class and name the class entity class as employee. So in the database table, we created table in the name employee so that we can create the entity class similar to the table name employee. Then finish. Then convert this plain Java class into an entity bin by adding the annotation at npt from the package javax.persistence. Then add one more annotation table from the package javax.persistence and set attribute name equal to the table name which we created in the MySQL database. The table name is employee. Then implement the serializable interface to the class employee. Serializable interface from the package java.io. Now it gives a warning error. Just place cursor on the class name employee. Then there is an option to add default serial version ID. So click on the option add default serial version ID. Now that serial version ID is added into the class employee. Then place cursor on the employee class. It says com.entity employee is managed but is not listed in the persistence.xml file. So open the file persistence.xml in the project directory structure. Expand JPA content. There we can view the file persistence.xml. So open the file persistence.xml. If you want, you can change the name of the persistence unit. So by default it takes based on the artifact ID we entered while creating a project. I just rename it as JPA, then save, and then under the section managed class use the option add, search your entity class. Employee is an entity class which is created in the package com.entity. So select and click OK. Now the class will be added under managed section class. So then save. Now open the file employee.java and create three instance variables: int employee id, emp id, and string name and int salary. So in the table employee in MySQL database has three columns: employee id, name and salary. Employee id and salary as declared as integer and name declared as varchar. So that I created three instance variable: employee id and salary as integer and name as a string. Then we need to add the annotation for the primary key. So at id from the package javax.persistence, the employee id in the database table employee is a primary key. So we need to add annotation to the instance variable employee id. In generate and get and set methods for this class, choose the file name employee.java in the project directory structure. Right click and use the option source, generate getters and setters, and select the instance variables employee id, name and salary. Click on generate, it generates get and set methods. Then save the file employee.java, then close. Next, open the file persistence.xml. Already we changed the name of the persistence unit as JPA. In the managed class section, we added the entity class employee. Then click on the tab connections. Change the transaction type as resource local. In the place of non-JTA data source, we need to place the JNDI information of MySQL database which we configured with JPA server. To identify the JNDI detail of MySQL database, open your browser. Before that, ensure the server is started. So click on the tab servers, server not yet started. Just click on this icon to start the server. Now the server is started. We got the message admin console listening on the link http://localhost IP address along with the port number 9990. So copy this link and paste it in your browser. So now it asks you to provide the username and password to open JBoss management console. So then provide the username and password, click on sign in button. It opens the JBoss management console. There you can click on the menu runtime, then choose standalone servers, subsystems, data sources, then click on the button view. It will list out all the available data sources configured with JBoss server. So there you can find MySQL data source. So this is the JNDA detail for MySQL data source. Copy this detail and paste it in Red Hat Code Ready Studio in the place non-JTA data source of persistence.xml file. Then save, close. Then create a Java class in the package com.model to build logic for CRUD operations. Choose the package com.model, right click and use the option new class and create a class in the name employee model. Then finish and create interface in the same package to access the stateless session bin remotely. Choose the package com.model and use the option new interface. Create interface for the class employee model. I named the interface as employee remote. Then finish. Then open the file employee remote.java and add annotation remote for remote access from the package javax.ejb. So declared 5 methods in the interface employee remote to perform CRUD operations using JPA. This is the method to perform insert operation and the method to perform read to retrieve data from the database table, and this is the method to retrieve a particular record from the database table, and update data is the method to update the value of existing record in the database table, and delete data method used to perform delete operation on the database table. Then open the file employee model.java, then convert this class into stateless session bin by adding the annotation stateless from the package javax.ejb. Then add one more annotation transaction management and set the attribute value equal to transaction management dot bean. Then implement the interface to the class employee model. Interface name is employee remote. Then place cursor on the class name employee model and use the option add unimplemented methods. So now it generates uh, all the methods which we declared in the interface employee remote. So this is the method insert data to perform insert operation using JPA. So here we can write a logic to perform insert operation. First create object for the class entity manager factory. And initialize by using the class persistence dot create entity manager factory and pass the JPA unit name as a parameter to the method create entity manager factory. So we can find the JPA unit name in the file persistence.xml. Just open the file persistence.xml. Here you can see the name of JPA unit. Just copy and paste it in the parameter to the method create entity manager factory. And create object for entity manager interface. Create object for the interface entity manager and initialize by using object of entity manager factory the method create entity manager. Then using the object of entity manager call the method get transaction dot begin. Then use the object of entity manager and call the method persist to perform insert operation. Parameter to the method persist is the object of entity class employee which passed as a parameter to the method insert data. Then commit the transaction em dot get transaction dot commit. Then close the object em by using the method em dot close and close the object emf entity manager factory by using the object emf dot call the method close. Then return an acknowledgement in the form of string record inserted successfully. So then write a logic to retrieve data from the database table. So create object for entity manager factory and entity manager. So we can copy the first three statements from the method insert data and paste it in read all. Then create object for the class query from the package javax.persistence equal to em dot call the method create query. We need to write JPA query language to retrieve data from the database table. Select, give some object name here, e from. My entity class name is employee that we created in the package com.entity. So the class name is employee, e capital letter, and assigned to the object e, which we placed in the place of select star. So this is the JPA query language to retrieve data from the database table. Then create object for list collection. The list type is employee class, entity class employee. Create object and assign value from the object in query dot get result list. So it gives a warning error. Just place cursor on the warning error and use the option add suppress warning unchecked to L. So click on this. Now the suppress warning unchecked will be added to the statement list L equal to query dot get result set. So then finally close the transaction em dot get transaction dot commit, and then close the object em by using the method em dot close. Then close the object entity manager factory emf dot call the method close. Then return the object of list collection as a result. So then write a logic to find a particular record from the table employee. So create object for entity manager factory and entity manager and begin the transaction. So copy the first three statements and paste it here. Then create object for the entity class employee e equal to use the object of entity manager em dot call the method find, then pass the entity class name employee dot class, and the parameter is the primary key employee ID, which we passed as a parameter to the method find data. So it retrieves the particular record from the table employee and assign the values to the object employee class. Then close the transaction em dot get transaction dot commit and close the object em dot use the method close and close the object emf by call the method emf dot close. Finally return the object of entity class employee as a result. So then write a logic to perform update operation using JPA. So copy paste the first three statements and then create object for the entity class employee and use the method em.find, and the first parameter is entity class employee.class and second parameter is the primary key which we passed as a parameter to the method update data. So it retrieves the data, particular data from the database table based on the input employee ID. Then we can modify the details e dot set employee ID from the object data of employee class. So set value for e dot employee ID by using the object data dot call the method get employee ID. Next, set value for name. Use the method e dot set name and the value from the object data dot get name. And set value for salary. Used to call the method e dot set salary and update value from the object data dot get salary. So then commit the transaction em dot get transaction dot commit. Then close the object em by using the method em dot close and close the object emf by using the method close. Then write a logic to perform delete operation using JPA. So copy paste the first three statements: entity manager factory, entity manager, and get transaction dot begin. Then create object for the entity class employee equal to object of entity manager em dot call the method find and pass the first parameter is an object of entity class employee dot class. And parameter, second parameter is the primary key which passed as a parameter to the method delete data. Then use the object of entity manager em dot call the method remove and pass the object of entity class employee as a parameter to the method remove. Then commit the transaction em dot get transaction dot commit. Then close the object em dot close and close the object of entity manager factory by using the object emf dot close. Then return acknowledgement in the form of string record deleted successfully. And write acknowledgement to the method update data also. Return acknowledgement as record updated successfully. Now the session bean is ready with all the CRUD operations: insert data, retrieve data from the database table, and retrieve a particular record from the database table, and update the information of the existing record in the database table, and delete a particular record based on the primary key employee ID. Then create a controller in the package com.controller by using the option right click on the package com.controller and use the option new class and name the class as employee service and convert this plain Java class into managed bean by adding the annotation managed bean and set attributes name equal to assign some name for this managed bean. I just assigned as emp and set eager equal to true. Then declare instance variable to interact with JSF file. and create another instance variable to get response and display it on the browser. So then generate get and set method for all these instance variables. There is a spelling mistake in string. So then generate get and set methods by using the file name employee-service.java from the project directory structure. Right click and use the option source, generate getters and setters, select all the instance variables and click on generate button. It generates get and set methods for all the 4 instance variables: employee ID, name, salary and response. Now create one more uh, instance variable for the list collection. List type is employee list. So this is the object used to retrieve data from the database table. So then generate get and set method for the object list. Repeat the same process. Choose the file name employee service.java. Then use sources, generate get and setters. Select the object list. Then click on generate. Now at end of the class, 2 methods are added for the object list, get and set list. So then we can create object for the interface employee remote. Employee remote is the interface name. Create object for this. Then create a method to perform CRUD operations. So first I'm going to create a method. I named the method as insert to execute the insert operation from the stateless session B. Then create a try catch. In the try block, create object for the entity class employee. Then set values for the instance variable by using set methods. E.set employee ID, the value from the user input that will be available in the instance variable employee ID, name and salary. So we can pass employee ID as a parameter to the method E.set employee ID. Next, call the method E.set name and pass the instance variable name as a parameter. Then E.set salary and pass the instance variable salary as a parameter. Then use the instance variable response equal to call the method from the stateless session bin by using the object of employee remote. So ER is an object of employee remote. So use the object ER dot. There we implemented 5 methods to perform CRUD operations using JPA. So this is the method insert we created in the controller to perform insert operation. So call the method insert data and pass the object of employee class as a parameter. Then the insert data method will perform insert operation into the database table using JPA. Finally, it returns a response in the form of string stating that records inserted successfully. If any error during this process, then display the response as the error message using the object of exception class and call the method getMessage. Okay, then retrieve data from the database table. We already implemented a method in the class employee model to retrieve data from the database table. So this method returns a list collection. So open the controller employee service.java. At the end, we added get and set list methods for the instance variable list collection. So use the get list method to retrieve data from the stateless session bin. and assign those values to this instance variable set. So create try catch, then in the try block so get value for the list collection object, list equal to object of employee remote interface, and call the method read all. The read all method retrieves the data from the database table employee and creates a list and return list as a result. That will be assigned to the list object in this controller class. If any error occur, then display the error message on the screen by using the response instance variable equal to e dot get message. So read operation is done. Next, in employee model, the next method is find data. It takes a parameter employee ID. It retrieves that particular record from the database table and returns. So then open the controller employee service.java. So create a method to call find data from stateless session B. Public void find and create try catch. Create object for the employee class. Equal to use the object of employee remote interface er dot call the method find data and pass the instance variable employee id as a parameter to the method find data. So now the find data method retrieves a particular record based on the employee id from the table employee and assign the values to this object employee. The find data method retrieves a particular record from the database table employee based on the employee ID and returns object of entity class employee. Then we can set the instance variable that will be reflected in the JSF page. Emp ID equal to e dot get employee ID and name equal to e dot get name and salary equal to e dot get salary. If any error occurred, that will be handled by the catch block. So use the response instance variable to display the message on the browser. So call the method get message from the object of exception class. The next method from the stateless session bin is update data. It uses to modify the record from the database table based on the employee ID. So then create a method to update records. I named the method as update and create try catch. Then in the try block, create object for the entity class employee Then set the values e dot set employee id based on the instance variable employee id, and set e dot set name of the employee based on the instance variable, and e dot set salary parameter is e dot set salary, and parameter is the instance variable salary. Then response equal to call the method er dot update data and pass employee id as a first parameter, and the object of employee class as a second parameter to the method update data. So the update data method updates the information into the database table based on the employee id. Then handle the exception. Response equal to e dot get message. The next method from the stateless session bin is delete data. So write a action method in the controller public void delete to perform delete operation. So create try catch. In the try block, just call the method and get response from the method delete data. So use the object of employee remote and call the method delete data and pass employee id as a parameter to the method delete data. So then the method delete data deletes a particular record from the database table based on the employee id. Then handle the exception. Response equal to e dot get message. Now controller is ready. Then we can design a front end by using the file index.xhtml. So then open the file index.xhtml, create a HTML tag and create a section and place title as JPA CRUD operations. Then create body section and place h3 tag to display the message on the browser. CRUD operations using JPA. Then create a form tag h:form. Then you will get a warning error. Place cursor on the warning error. Add a namespace sun.java.com jsf/html. Then close the form tag. Here you can place 3 input text controls to get input from user. Value equal to the managed bin emp dot set value for employee id. Then place 2 input text control. One is for employee name and another one is for employee salary. Input text value equal to the managed bin name emp dot set value for name. Next, input text control to get value for salary from user and set value to the instance variable emp dot salary. Then create a paragraph tag and place button controls to perform the CRUD operations. h colon command button action equal to the managed bin emp dot. First we can add a button to perform insert operation. So call the method insert and set value equal to insert. Then place button controls for update and delete. So one is for update operation. So change the method in the action attribute emp dot, call the method update. And another one is for delete operation. So and change the value for the update button as update. And another button control placed for to perform delete operation, so that we need to change the function in the action attribute emp dot delete and change the value for the button control as delete. Then place one more button control near to employee ID to perform find operation. Command button action equal to the managed bin emp dot, call the method find and the value, that means caption on the button control as find. Then create a data table. Then create a tag for display response on the web page. So use h colon output label and value equal to managed bin emp dot get value from the instance variable response and close the paragraph tag. Then place a data table to retrieve data from the database. Use the tag data table and set attributes value equal to the managed bin name emp dot. Now we can find the object list. So use the object list and set another attribute where equal to row. Inside the data table, create three columns. One is for employee ID and another one is for name and another one is for salary. So use h colon column. Inside that, set a column header and value. So we can use the tag f colon set to create a column header. So now it shows warning error. Place cursor on that and add the namespace http://java.sun.com JSF core. Now the namespace is added to your HTML tag. Then set attribute for the tag facets name equal to header and set column header employee ID and close the tag facets. So then retrieve value for this column. So write a expression language as open brace, then select the variable row dot get value from employee ID. So like this we can create two more columns for employee name and salary. So change the table header as employee name and retrieve value from row dot name and create one more column and change the header as salary and retrieve value from row dot salary. So now everything is done. We can deploy and check the result. So before that, stop the server and choose the project root directory, right click, run as run on server. Once the project is deployed successfully, it opens index.jsf file by default. Now we need to add JNDA detail for stateless session bin. So we can find the JNDA details in the console log. So here you can see JNDA Java naming directory interface binding for the session bin employee model is listed here. So we can copy the JNDA detail for employee remote interface and paste it in the controller file employee service.java where we created object for the interface employee remote. So add the annotation EJB from the package javax.ejb and set lookup equal to the JNDA details which we copied from the console. Then deploy one more time. So stop the server and choose project root directory and run as run on server. So once it is deployed, it opens index.jsf file by default. There we can paste controls to perform CRUD operations using JPA. Okay, now the file index.xhtml is open. So now here we can see this is the data available from the database MySQL in the table employee. So now the table has two records, employee ID 1001 and 1002, that will be reflected on the browser. So then we will test the remaining operation, insert, update, delete and find. So try to retrieve value from the database table for the employee ID 1001. So then click on the find button. It retrieves value from the database table. So the record 1001, employee name is XXX and salary is 10,000. It fetches the detail from the database table and display it on the control input text control employee name and salary. Then we can test the update operation. I just modify the name of employee as AAA for employee ID 1001. Then click on update button. We'll get a response record updated successfully. So the same will be reflected on the browser. 1001, previously the employee name is XXX. Now it is modified based on the details we entered in this three input text controls. Then we can test delete operation. I would like to delete the employee ID 1002. So change the employee ID as 1002. Then click on find. It retrieves data for the employee ID 1002. Then click on the delete button. Now we'll get a response record deleted successfully. Then we can test insert operation. Now I'm going to insert 1002. Then click on insert. We'll get a message record inserted successfully. So the record 1002 will be inserted into the table.